guys, so today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 tips for house hunting at uni. So when you're in your first year, you'll be living in halls and everything's quite easy until you have to think about what you're going to do in your second year, whether you're going to live in a house and who you're going to live with, or whether you're going to go back into halls, and all these different options that are going to be like going around in your head and you're not too sure what's going to happen. So I'm just going to talk through kind of like what I did, what kind of tips I would say. I have now house hunted twice, so I did it in my first year and in my second year too. So I've lived in 2 student houses now, so I've kind of got my idea of what to do when it comes to house hunting, and I've had 2 very different experiences on both years. So I can kind of give you my advice as well as giving you like my top 10 tips on what to do. I've got my notes written down here, so I'm going to go through everything with you. So my first tip would be, don't live with people you don't want to. Don't panic about who you're going to live with. If it's getting to like towards Christmas time and you're thinking, I haven't made any like really close friends that I think I would want to live with in my second year, I haven't really made connections with people that I want to live with, or I don't really know who I want to live with. There's people that I live with now, but do I want to live with them again? There's my friends, but do I really like them that much yet? Like all those kind of questions going through your head, it is not the end of the world. You don't need to get your house sorted before Christmas. The year before last, I got mine sorted before Christmas. In my first year, it was all sorted. Last year, it really wasn't. I didn't get it sorted until like February, March time. It was super late. Don't leave it until that late. I'm a very organised person, but just things happened and I didn't really know who to live with, and there was all these like situations, and so that ended up me not knowing who I was living with and leaving it until quite late. But at the end of the day, I've still got a house. Like, I still like my room. I'm living with girls that I really like. Like, at the end of the day, it's all worked out well, and I didn't get it sorted before Christmas, so please don't panic. My second tip would be, don't be worried about who to live with. Last year, this was me. I was really worried about who to live with. Basically, what happened is I changed my course in my second year, so I went back into first year technically, but I was living in a second year house with my friends I'd met on my first year course, and then all of those friends that I was living with 3 other girls, they were all going on placement this year, and so they weren't going to be in Manchester necessarily, and I had to choose other people to live with. So this was my situation last year, and I really didn't know what to do. Met friends on my new course, but we weren't that close yet. No one really had bonded. Quite a few of the girls were living with people they'd lived with in first year, just in their halls. They'd already got their house sorted. One of the girls was living with their boyfriend. Like, people were just living with different people, and I was really stuck with what to do. So me and another girl called Claire, who's one of my best friends, both were in kind of a similar situation. She didn't want to live with people that she'd lived with in first year, and I didn't know who to live with. So we were both like, right, we'll live together. We didn't want to just live as a 2, because I get extremely scared in a house by myself, and if one of us were away for the weekend, the other one would have been by themselves, and we didn't really want that kind of situation. So we wanted a situation where the both of us could be in the house and still live together but live with other people. So we went onto a website called Manchester Student Homes. There's many websites in lots of different places of the country that do all this kind of thing, but it's basically a place where you can find other students to live with. They had a forum on there where you could type on like 2 girls looking for 4 other girls to live with them, and that's exactly what we did. The lighting is driving me insane in this video because the sun keeps going in and out, so let's please excuse the lighting situation. Anyway, so we wanted to live in a house of about 5, 6 or 7 people, just a bit of a bigger house, and we've ended up with all girls. We all get on really well, and we're all in this house. And we ended up not sourcing it until about March time, March, April I'd say it was. It wasn't even February, it's probably like March, April time. It was really late, there wasn't many houses left, and I found it extremely stressful. I'm not a person that likes being rushed into a decision. I like to have my time, I like to be organised, but that just wasn't the situation that happened. So that's what I want to say, is you don't have to be worried about who you want to live with. At the end of the day, if you think, actually, I don't know who I want to live with, but I want to get my house sorted, you can go on websites that are like housemate finders or anything like that, like different house shares, and you can find other people to live with, so it's not the end of the world. As for the majority of people that are looking around houses and house hunting to go into their second year house, it will probably be the first time you've ever been house hunting, you've ever been house viewing at all, by yourself. I guess most of you have just gone from living with your parents to going into halls. So the one thing I would say is use your imagination when you're looking around these houses. I think some people don't care where they live and they just want a house and they just want somewhere cheap, which is absolutely fine. The majority of people want somewhere they can make nice and make into their own for their house. When we looked around this house, there was 6 guys living here. Now, no offence to you guys out there, but this house was absolutely disgusting. Literally, the whole place stunk. It was just disgusting. But you have to look past that and think, right, the estate agent or the landlord is going to get that sorted before we move into the house. They're going to make it nice. They're going to make it able for us to move into the house. Obviously, constructional work and stuff like that isn't going to get changed. But stuff that can be changed, stuff that can be cleaned, stuff that can be painted, all that kind of stuff will be sorted before you move in, as long as you specify it to the landlord or the estate agent that you are kind of going to go with for a house. So just make sure when you're looking around a house to be imaginative, and don't think, oh my god, this is absolutely disgusting, and then not go for it, because it might be a really nice house once you got into it. My next tip would be, don't go for the first house that you see. I understand that most people don't want to look around millions of houses. I ended up doing that in first year, and it did get quite confusing because we were looking at so many different houses. But look at a good amount. You don't want to just go and look at a house and go, oh yeah, that'll do. Like, you might go to the first house and then you might love it and end up going with that one in, you know, a week's time or so, or in a day's time. But I think just look at a good amount of houses to know what you're going to get for your money, if that makes sense, before you agree on the first one that you saw. I would say think about whether you want an estate agent like to manage your house or whether you want a landlord. Last year we had a specific landlord for our house. There wasn't really an estate agent, and it wasn't the best situation because it could get quite personal if you messaged this one person because it's just a landlord and they wouldn't do something for you. It was just a bit awkward. Whereas if it's estate agents, you can literally just ring up the estate agents and be like, look, this hasn't been done, can you please do it? They're a business at the end of the day, they want to keep up a reputation, that's fine. Whereas when it was a landlord, I just think it didn't work as well. I much prefer being with an estate agent this year. It's completely up to you and what you want to do, but there is a difference between the two different scenarios, so just make sure you kind of look it up first. Another thing is, not living with your friends isn't the worst thing in the world. Now for me, I do love living with my friends, and I can't really talk from my experience, but I have kind of my best friends aren't necessarily living all in this house with me. There are some of my best friends that live in different houses, and that is absolutely fine. Like, I can still go and see them, and I still see them quite often because they're just around the corner and they pop round all the time, and we'll still have movie nights and we'll still do things together. But not living with them isn't the worst thing in the world. Last year I lived with 3 of my closest friends. We lived in a house of 4, and yeah, we were all really close, and it just kind of didn't work. We were better friends when we weren't living together than when we were, and so I just, again, look at that kind of situation as well. I sometimes wish that in first year I would have thought about actually living with my flat that I lived with in first year in halls. I think in first year I was so like, oh, I want to live with my best friends, blah blah blah, which the majority of people do and the majority of people it works for. But for me, I definitely preferred living with people that weren't my best friends but I still got on with them, rather than living with my best friends and then falling out and everybody like just being a bit like bitchy and passive aggressive and stuff, and then you're in the house with your friends and you have really nowhere else to go. Whereas when I lived in halls and we'd kind of have an argument or something, you'd be able to go to your friend's house and stuff like that. So that's one thing I struggled with last year. So it's not the end of the world if you don't live with your friends. One thing I would say is consider the location and what is nearby, what you need. For me, I have a car, so I'm not really bothered about being near a bus route, but I know everybody else in this house was bothered about being near a bus route. So we ended up getting a house that was really near a bus route because one of us, me, has a car, and 5 people wanted to be near a bus route, so obviously we went near the bus route. Obviously think about what you want in your house, what you want to be nearby. We've got a McDonald's really close. Do you want that? Just different things that you want to be nearby, basically. It's normally transport, but yeah, just consider the location of the property. From my experience, obviously I'm at uni in Manchester, so I can speak about like Manchester areas, but there is one area in Manchester called Fallowfield, which is kind of like the student area where the majority of students live. And so even though maybe living in the city centre would be great, maybe most of your friends would live in Fallowfield, and maybe then you should consider living in Fallowfield. Do you understand what I mean? Just look at the little student areas around where your university is and think about where's the best location for you. Another thing is definitely to think about whether you want bills included or whether you want to do bills yourself. In both the houses that I've lived in, I have done bills myself, and we've all like done the bills ourselves in the property, because when you do, oh, flicking my hair, when you do bills included, it can be really expensive. The majority of them are £20 per person per week extra than what you are paying, which is obviously a lot of money, and normally bills do not work out to be that much more, like that much if you do them yourself. It obviously completely depends, and if you know that you're not going to be very good at organising the bills, or you just want it to be managed by somebody else and you just pay them, then obviously it makes it easier to do bills included. But if you know that you could do it yourself and it's going to be quite easy, and you trust the people that you live with to pay you or pay whoever is going to be sorting out the bills in the house month by month, then do it like that, because honestly it's worked for us really well. My 9th tip would be to look at the bedroom sizes. Obviously you're going to do that anyway, but if you go to a house, especially one that's a bit bigger, and there's a lot of rooms in the house, there will be a couple of rooms that are smaller, and I do think when you go around a house you'll be like, oh well, it doesn't matter, that's fine. But if you end up getting that room and you know you're going to be funny about it, or you know you're not going to want that room, think about that when you're picking the house, because you might get it. I know a couple of my friends have moved into houses and everyone's been like, yes, I really want that house, all the rooms are fine, and then they've got the smallest room and really not been happy about it. So just if you're moving into a house, or if you've chosen a house and there is a smaller room or a couple of smaller rooms, just make sure before you choose that house that everybody in the house is absolutely fine if they get that small room, because sometimes it can be a tricky situation choosing rooms. Every year we've done it on like a random generator online, or pick them out of a hat. So yeah, that's obviously the fairest way. And the last thing is, if it seems too cheap, then it probably is too cheap. When we've looked at houses, some of them are really, really cheap and you've gone in, and some of them are absolutely fine, but some of them you go in and there can be damp on the walls and all that kind of stuff, so it's really important to go and view the houses. But also one thing I would say is make sure everybody that you're looking at a house with is okay with the amount that you want to spend. I always say that the most awkward subject at university is money. I think it's a really awkward subject. I never like to talk about it really, unless I'm really close to the people. But when you're looking at houses, you need to make sure that everybody in your group, everybody that's looking at living together in a house, is on the same budget. If one person wants to spend £150 a week on a house and one person wants to spend £60 a week on a house, obviously it's not going to work. So you just need to kind of like make a happy balance between everybody and understand what everybody wants. So I feel like this video has been quite rambly, but I hope it maybe has helped some of you guys with your house hunting. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel, which is JDR Makeup over on YouTube, if you have enjoyed it, and I will speak to you next time. Bye!